Now, when I was a sabbatical minister in Cleveland, there was this man who'd been at the church for an incredibly long time. He was in his 80s, and he walked with a cane, but he rode a motorcycle to church. He was quite the interesting fellow. You would love to spend time getting to know him, and I did. I adored him. He and his wife would have me over to dinner, and we would talk about the church and his beliefs and my future in the ministry. But every Sunday, without fail, he would give me what I called the God count. He would come through the line following the service with the carefully drawn tick marks on the top of his order of service, adding up the number of times in the service that I had used the word God. I would usually just smile when he'd give me this number and say, "Really? I didn't know that." Or, "Huh, more than last week." Or, "Wow, fewer than last week. I wouldn't have thought." Finally, after about 4 or 5 weeks in a row, I finally said, "Well, what do you think I mean when I say the word God?" Now, we had had countless conversations about God and about what God means to me in private. But something about hearing God on Sunday in front of everyone made it different for him. And he said, "Well, I don't know. I'm guessing you're not talking about some white man in the sky." I said, "No, I'm not." And then I asked him, "George, have you ever had a feeling that you were part of something larger than yourself? When you were just overwhelmed by gratitude or love or hope?" Now, he paused for a very long moment, and I could tell that he was taking my question thoughtfully and really digging into the recesses of his memory. He said, "You know, I was married before my current wife for a short time when I was really young, and we were trouble together. But I really loved her. And one day, she just left me. I thought I would never get through it. It tore me in half. And that night that she left, I remembered waking up in the middle of the night in a sweat and sitting straight up in bed. And I had this feeling, it was so weird. I had this feeling as though I was not alone in the room anymore. And I had this thought out of nowhere that it was going to be okay and that I was going to be okay." I paused to let his memory end and for him to return to the present, his God count for the day still in his hand. I pointed to the order of service and said, "Every time I say the word God, George, that is what I mean. That is exactly what I mean." Now, George is an atheist, and he became an even newer version of atheist, I would argue, than that crew of academics I mentioned earlier. I would consider those academics the vista of the atheist world. But there's an even newer atheist, like George, who progressed far beyond that first conversation and quit counting the number of times that I said the word God. Let's call it Atheism 7.0. It's the atheist who values the power of allegory and metaphor. It's the atheist who goes to church and believes that religion has intrinsic value. Atheists who understand that fundamentalist atheism is just as detrimental as fundamentalist Christianity or Islam. Who see the humanity in all people as valuable, even while in a difficult conversation. So this newest atheism has reached version 7.0, and like Microsoft, they appear to be listening to the user and incorporating their ideas into the programming. Now, I need you to know, as I type this sermon on my laptop, Vista froze several times and had to be rebooted. And my power cord only charges if I twist the connector just the right spot. It takes me almost 5 minutes to boot my computer, so it's probably time for me to buy a new one. Now, I'm confident enough that I will survive, am I confident enough that I will survive the change to cross over into the Mac family, where the behind the scenes is a mystery, all the parts were made by the same company, and there's only one help number to call? Or would that result in even more frustration for me? Now, I find myself intrigued by 7.0. Maybe it's enough to make me invest my money with one more Windows product. But here's what I do know. Regardless of what laptop I end up buying, and regardless of whether or not you call me an atheist, an agnostic, or a theist, the sermons will still be the same. Amen.